This is Russell MacLeod, who has been helping me fight with some of my fight instincts to make something that looks really good on the movies. So with film and TV, what you've got to do, you've got to protect your performers, you've got to get the right kind of performance, and you've probably got to do it again tomorrow and again the day after, because there might be big fight sequences.
But the luxury of having choreography is that you can actually have almost tell a story in a form of ebb and flow.
Oh yes, because that was absolutely fascinating thing you told me, that when you organise a fight, you've got to look at the character of the people fighting in the story, and you've got to create a beginning, a middle and end. I mean, do you want to expand on that a little bit? Or?
Well, one, obviously, you can't have somebody fighting in a style that's totally contrary to their character and their experience. Yeah. But also, a good fight, I think, is like a three-stage act.
Right.
You've got setup,
yeah,
you've got conflict and resolution.
Things I thought was really great about what you choreographed was the story. Do you want to sort of take us through the story of that fight? Because it's really interesting.
You're the hero, coming in with confidence, so you would be straight away into the conflict.
So I do my little flourish.
When you were weighing each other up, again, to make it look interesting, I'm sure I doubt if you've ever done this in a competition that you'd ever bother to do flurries or.
I quite like it when I see somebody do that, because if I time it and knock the sword out of their hand, and
because you do not have a solid grip, and it's a very impractical thing
unless
to
you're
do.
a long way away from
but
the
it does look. It's almost compulsory in movies now to show proficiency with the blade.
Yes.
Just to make it look even more proficient, we did a grip change. So once you'd done your flurry, we ended up drop into what we call ice pick grip.
Yeah.
And then from there, going into a figure of 8 attack.
From my perspective, that's as far, the idea of shortening the sword is of course crazy. I mean, and the amount of leverage you get on it and the accuracy. Reverse grip is, I guess in an emergency, if it's the only thing you can do, then it's better than nothing, but it's a terrible grip. So actually putting your sword in this grip, I mean, hiding the sword, there are moves that sort of hide the sword from the opponent, like this in some of the treaties, but you're still holding it, and usually with two hands.
With maximum reach.
Yeah, but you kind of want to, but the idea of sort of using the sword this way around is spectacular, but probably not very practical. And I sort of do it twice, and I cut, and I'm sort of dragging the sword, and then I kind of swing and cut like this way as well.
And you've compromised yourself by having to close the distance to achieve that.
And he, of course, because he's a good performer, he isn't actually hitting me when I'm doing it, because he's taking the blows. Yeah. So that's the hero setup.
In a competition mode, he would have actually just countered with your shot.
Because I would have done that.
But because he's a very nice cooperative stuntman, he's actually selling the gag by taking the impact and taking his blade even further away from you, which is very generous.
Brilliant. So we do that. So that's the setup, and then there's the kind of that I do the sort of big, I'm going to finish, and then there's a big,
again, a massive hero lunge
like that,
and he blocks.
Yeah.
And we go shoulder to shoulder and throw each other back and have to reassess the situation.
Yes.
Because now we've tested each other's mettle, literally.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a little think about...
So that's the setup. So that's the sort of intro.
That's the setup.
So it's like, the hero isn't going to win this in one kind of flourish.
Well, it's like the hero's got some quite impressive moves, but they didn't get him anywhere with his opponent, so they look quite equally balanced.
Yes. So then there's...
So this is no walkover.
Yeah. So then the midsection of it is...
The baddie rallies and showing that obviously this fight could go either way, because he's obviously got some moves too.
Yeah.
So now he comes with a big lunge, and then this is with a beat parry.
So I beat
and the
that way,
move.
and then I spin all the way around like this. Yeah, clong, like that.
But because he had a helmet on, it wasn't a fatal blow.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
he comes up next. He's going to go, tries to
So
go.
I then reset to
over
here
the
because I
head
know
shot.
it's coming. So I then do this.
And you take the blade,
to the ground.
And we
then-
have a second of impasse
Yeah.
where you have to seize the advantage and you
then
stamp on the...
Stamp on the thing, like that. And then, like this, bash.
And he staggers around. He's almost
Yeah, like
concussed,
this,
but
and
he's
then-
still got a shield, and he
Bang.
goes bam and
So
knocks
for the
you
start,
back.
so then that's the reverse. So I'm again on the ascendant, and then he pushes me back. But he pushes me back so hard, bang!
You
I
stagger back.
Oh,
He now has the chance to recover his weapon, but it's not in an ideal position, so he just has to grab any old bar.
Yes.
And now it's kind of an improvised use of a sword.
Yeah.
This end is now the weapon.
Yes.
And he uses it in a clubbing manner, so it's a cross,
And I back away, of course.
backhand,
Back away, of course.
uppercut,
And then
which leaves
pushes
you
me back.
exposed to
Yeah.
do the classic 300 kick, which
Yes.
everyone would be disappointed if you didn't, and you go bam, and we knock you back.
So that's the story. I'm about to then be defeated.
This
And
is
then,
the-
so I go down on one
This is
knee.
the moment where we milk the emotion of
Yeah.
the audience. For my God, our hero's in genuine peril.
Yes.
He really is on the back foot,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Literally the back foot.
So the baddie goes for a big, spectacular stabby.
And because he's here, he now,
Yeah.
to apply the final blow, kicks up,
flicks it over.
goes
do
for the
that.
stab and leaves
And then leaves
himself
himself
exposed in a
And
vulnerable
yeah.
point.
And I stab through.
And you save the day at the last moment.
And of course, all of those strikes, you can. It is perfectly reasonable to actually hold the sword reversed like this. There are lots of things in armour to do that. In fact, there's a technique called half swording, which is exactly this. And what you're doing is stiffening the blade and going for the armpits. But while I'm being knocked back, what am I doing with this sword? Wouldn't I kind of, in a real fight, it would never happen in that sort of way. But at the same time, you have to sell it.
Absolutely.
I have to back off and not do anything, be passive, because otherwise the story doesn't work.
And this is where the edit comes in, because when we have this and this, we can cut certain parts out so the beats suddenly occur faster.
Right.
And it gives more plausibility to the fact that you are concussed and do not have a chance to recover.
I can't rally in.
Consequently, you don't mount a defense.
Yes.
You've been knocked into a prone position, and this is taking advantage of it.
Yes. Oh, and the one we didn't do was the cross swords.
That is the biggest cliche ever.
Yeah, it's like this.
And
You go,
the-
"Oh,
and-
I hate you, I hate you, blah,
And
blah, blah."
at this time, nobody's
Yeah.
doing anything with their legs.
Yeah,
They're all-
exactly.
Nobody's headbutting.
Yeah.
We're just.
There's nothing here, yeah.
And it's a strange thing.
Yeah.
It's the one cinematic one I tried to avoid.
Right. I mean, you do get sword binds. You sometimes get sword binds. But what typically happens, if you could put your sword up, for me, I find the sword binds often go up. But you'd step out the way of it and all sorts of stuff. But because we're filming it, we need to stay within the kind of film area that's happening. And that's an interesting skill as well, because naturally I tend to step off and step aside.
When we did each take, as you said, it was screaming against your instincts
yes,
that
yeah.
this wasn't practical,
Yes.
or you could have made a
With
defense
some
or
kind of defensive move, yeah.
But once we edit it down, it will look like the cadence of the fight will be so rapid that it will look like there was
I
no
couldn't
chance
have done
to.
it. Yeah, so it's all about plausible, realistic stuff on screen, but it's got to entertain, and you've got to walk away and do it again the next day.
Absolutely, and the blows might look hard, but we're using lightweight weapons, and we're not actually going for big impacts, so it looks like you expended a lot of energy with that blow, but you didn't. Even when we do shoulder to shoulder, again, we are cooperating, we're doing a duet, we're not actually trying to force each other out of the arena.
And that's a big difference. We're building up the tension for the audience, and it's not a real fight, and we're telling a story in the fight, which is absolutely fascinating.
Which is something that you don't realise that you're almost conditioned to expect.
Yes.
Because in a fight that doesn't seem very satisfying when you've watched it, probably didn't have those elements.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for looking after me, and thank you very much for guiding us.
Absolute pleasure.
And thank you to James, who's off camera, for being such a good lad.
Absolute star as your opponent.
Brilliant.
Excellent stuff.
Thank you. I found this whole sequence with fighting for television and film very, very informative, very interesting. Real fighting is a very serious thing. Tournament fighting is equally serious. There's a lot of injuries potentially made. And of course in filming you could get injured, but the way that the professionals kind of look after you and guide you, it's given me a whole new appreciation of what you actually see on camera. As a tournament fighter myself and as somebody who does real fighting, I've often looked at stuff on TV and thought, they're just making it up, it's not very good. But in fact, it is very good. It's its own speciality. It is a particular type of fighting. It's almost safe fighting and show fighting, but it's still very physical. I was equally tired after a tournament session as I was after doing the filming, and I really appreciate the professionalism that's gone into it. It also must have been similar in fighting back in the medieval period, because you did have more formal fighting. You had your tournaments, you had your dueling, where there are more rules about what you could do. There are rules about weapons and what is actually going on. And then you've got your war fighting, you've got your free-for-all on the battlefield. The objective there is just to kill the other people. But you've got a whole bunch of people. You probably wouldn't use the sort of weapons that you would use for a duel. The sword would be put aside and you would bring out the kind of the AK-47 of the medieval period. This is a poleaxe. I have ended up with a new appreciation for the action-adventure sword fight that we see on movies and TV. It's its own set of skills, and to entertain and tell a story in a fight, I think is a fantastic skill, and it has been a huge pleasure to be involved at least a little bit. Was that action? Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to use that notification button, and we'll see you next week.